Hi. How are you?
How are you?
Good. How are you?
We're going to start this way and go that way?
Sure, that works. So you're playing a new character, brand new to Star Trek.
Yes.
How did you prepare for that? Were you a Star Trek fan? Did you watch?
Big Star Trek fan. Big Star Trek fan, although I don't think there's anyone quite like my character in the franchise so far. And if you've seen more of the show than I think you have, then maybe you understand that, but I can't say very much. But I'm a big Star Trek fan since I was about 4 or 5 years old. So, yeah.
Favorite series?
Next Generation, my favourite. Deep Space Nine also amazing. Voyager also amazing. But that was my introduction, and also that's the one that we got the most replays of in England. So we would just watch it again and again and again. I got to meet Patrick Stewart a few years ago, begged him for a selfie, and I heard there's a Next Generation reunion happening somewhere. So I'm gonna fucking lose it. Yeah. We're gonna see a lot of very weird selfies on the internet.
Thank you.
Going this way?
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Mike with Trek Movie. And just, you've played a villain in the MCU universe.
And a hero in DC, so I'm very confused.
That was my question, is would you be interested in playing a villain in Star Trek? Or is there something in Starfleet that you wish your character would get a chance to do?
No, I think my character really gets to do all the fun things just later. I feel very satisfied with this character. I got to play with kind of parts of my brain that I haven't been able to play with on any project I've ever done before. This has been, especially in animation, this has been the most exciting thing I've ever done. And I was so excited. You look down your schedule, and I'm very lucky to love all of the jobs that I do, but it's like a proper dopamine rush when I know that I get to go in with the Hageman brothers and create this character, and they gave me a lot of liberty to create her with them and let me really play and really develop her, and she develops very fast and very fully, and that's really exciting.
Thank you.
With you being a big fan of Star Trek, what are some of the themes of the shows that mean the most to you?
I think the fact that they were one of the only shows, especially back then, that were tackling race, class, gender, disability, even with Geordie, there was just all kinds of different things, like data represented a certain section of society that maybe is socially awkward or feels a bit disconnected. I know that was definitely me as a kid and my brother, and we definitely identified with him and the way that he would try to seek to understand how to feel, and I wasn't very good at communicating how I felt, and I also used to give too much detail about everything. I was a very obsessive kid, and everyone used to tell me to shut the fuck up. and watching that happen in a really affectionate way, I think also taught that generation to maybe be a bit kinder and more affectionate with people who sometimes don't read the social cues, and it taught me to maybe learn how to read social cues better. I think the fact that we tell important stories, there was so much diversity back from the Captain Kirk days. That to me is something that is very exciting and a legacy that no one can match. And also they've been so ahead of the game in the stories that they've told, and the stories from 40 years ago are the stories that we still need now more than ever, like people who come from different places, different backgrounds, who speak different languages, who don't even understand each other, who politically do not agree with each other, even the journey of the Ferengis, we need to see more stories of people who come from different places finding a way to work together. I think that's what The Good Place was also really beautiful with, was people from different places who have different outlooks coming together to create a better solution, and so maybe it's because they have common enemies like the Borg or whatever, but I think that we just created a very fantastical way to tell actually very grounded stories. They did, not we. We've just joined. They.
Ascencia is a new character for the second half of the season. Without giving too much away, what can you tell us about her?
Pain in the ass. Everything I've ever done, I'm playing a pain in the ass. I shoot Pitch Perfect comes out in a month. I'm a pain in the ass. Trahani, the pain in the ass. Titania, pain in the ass. I enjoy those characters a lot because I think that they're complicated and complex, and I like understanding why they are the way that they are. But she's precocious, she's extremely confident, very empowered, self-empowered, and she's clever, she's very bright, and she uses that to her advantage throughout the show, and you'll be able to see more about that later.
Speaking to the roles you just mentioned, where you play pains in the ass who get things going, they are agents of the action. Did you feel any impetus to dial it back as the show is targeted at a younger audience?
No.
Good.
Next question.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Did you have any other questions?
Yes. How do you approach delivering the philosophy of Roddenberry's vision of acceptance and diversity to the younger audience? Like, does it ever intimidate you?
What do you mean?
Having to deliver such heavy philosophical truths to a younger generation, like, do you fear that you may be going over their heads?
I don't, because I like in the Hageman Brothers, I trust, right? Like they've written something that is so beautiful that exists on two planes, where it can be understood by the kids in one way and understood by adults in a very different way. Like I was able to read this and it didn't feel like material that was dumbed down for me and or diluted for me in any way. And so I trust them, and then having seen how brilliantly executed the first part of season 1 was, I have no concerns whatsoever. I just thought it was some of the most fun and excellent writing I've read in a really long time. I would die if we made this into a live action.
Nice.
Can you talk about getting, the calls for the show itself? You have this amazing body of work, and you talked about on social media how you were a fan of Star Trek. You talked about it now. Like, what was it like? Did you just say yes immediately?
It was just an all caps email, which I've never sent before to my team, so that they can visibly hear me screaming from my fingertips. I was thrilled. I didn't even read the material. I didn't ask how much money it was. I didn't ask how much they would need me for or where I would be. I just said yes, and then I immediately phoned my brother.
Yeah, so how much did you know about Ascencia's character going in? Because at the end of the 5th episode, something comes out that's going to change what we know about this character. And did you know that in advance?
I did, because I recorded out of sequence.
Okay.
So that was extremely confusing. But we needed to establish her because she's a very strong character, and so we needed to make sure we had her down from day one. And it was important for them and me that I understood the journey I was about to go on, and that I had to keep put into my delivery. So hopefully I've executed that well, but I tried my best. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you. Pat, we've hit everything I was going to ask. So, do you have another one?
We're so used to asking talent and actors, directors about things about the show and things about the career and their structure and process. Is there anything that you would want to know from the Star Trek fan community, people attending Comic-Con?
What do you mean?
Just like, to the people that you're performing to, essentially, is there anything that's always been a curiosity of yours about the Star Trek fan community, or something that you'd be interested to know?
I don't know if I have that much curiosity, only because they wear their hearts on their sleeves, unlike any other community I've seen. Like, they're the kindest community. They really want the best. Like, they've been so welcoming to all of us. Like, even some of the younger people on the show who haven't yet experienced a lot of Star Trek, who haven't grown up on Star Trek, this is their first experience of it. They haven't been shunned. Like, there's a lot of snobbery in some fandoms where it's just like, do you know enough to hang with us? And I get that, but also, like, we're deliberately trying to welcome in, young people who've never seen any of this before, who maybe aren't old enough to see some of the more explicit older content, and so I think it's been incredibly cool to witness a fandom that can be this strong, this global, this long-lasting, who have still maintained their kindness, and it feels like good parents, or whatever, good teacher, good students. It means that the philosophy of the show has clearly worked its way through its fan base, and there is an ultimate kindness and togetherness in the community, I find. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely do.
Okay, so I have no questions for them. I just appreciate them.
Thank you.
With you having been in DC, Marvel, and now Star Trek, these characters are going to pretty much live forever. Is that ever a weird feeling for you? Do you ever think about that?
It is weird. It's exciting though, because the stuff meant so much to me. Like, I didn't really have friends when I was a kid, and I didn't go out much. I had a pretty fucking miserable childhood, and this stuff was my whole escape, you know, entertainment. And so to ever know that I might be a part of someone else's escape is like, it's truly like one of the great privileges. I don't think by any stretch of the imagination that actors save lives, but I do know that they accidentally kind of saved mine. And so just to be able to be a part of that for someone else feels great.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. Does anyone have any other questions?
I mean,
we haven't been told to stop yet.
So, as a fan of Star Trek, what alien species would you want to meet from Star Trek?
I have a soft spot for Worf. Obviously, Data is my favourite, and Data is so unique and amazing. But I have a strong love for Worf. I think he always got a really raw deal. No one could see how funny he was and how straight his delivery was. The mating call delivery was one of my favourite lines in the history of Star Trek. And so I have big love for the Klingons. I'm also really grumpy. You know, I'm English. I feel as though in my head I always saw them as English. You know, so they were deeply relatable to me.
How have you tackled the transition into acting solely with your voice, whereas you've played these characters that are larger than life?
It's harder and easier at the same time. It's harder because it doesn't translate as easily across the microphone, so you have to throw much more and you have to be a much more exaggerated. I tend to be a more subtle, soft-spoken person, not on Twitter, obviously, but in real IRL, and so you have to really throw yourself into it. There's no space for inhibition, but then at the same time, there are no things around you that are going to make you feel inhibited. Like, you don't have cameras in your face, you don't have other actors around, you are alone in a booth with two people who couldn't be rooting for you more, and by that I mean the Hagen brothers. There's no worrying about what I look like or where the camera is or if I'm in the right light. I'm just in the character. It's the most immersive acting experience you can ever have, and I genuinely think it's made me a better on-camera actor to learn how to be a voiceover actor. It's great training because it means you just have to put your vanity or your insecurity, there's no space for any of that. You know, you have to be pretending to fall off a cliff or be eaten by a dinosaur, like some of the ridiculous things that I've had to do. You know, all these fake fights that I've had to have, and you just have to be fully ridiculous in that room, and it pays off. And that's what makes some of the great voice actors that are out there.
Now, you mentioned live action earlier. Do you think, is there a particular, place that you'd like to visit in live action with your character? Like, could you see her on Deep Space Nine or, the Enterprise? What would be your dream?
100%, but even just being able to tell this story here, I think would be an amazing one. So even me taking the place with being a navigator on DSS Gauntlet, whatever, but this is actually the story I would love to tell. I don't want to go over old ground because I think they've nailed it. I don't think we need to retell any of those stories, but I would love to tell this story where we kind of get to, in little ways, incorporate all of those worlds into one. And I think, as I think I said here before, I've just done 45 interviews, but the fact that these kids don't know anything about the Star, about the Starfleet and about Star Trek and about anything to do with the legacy, it means that, or the Federation even, this will be how we can introduce a whole new generation, is why it's something as fresh as this. This is literally the project I would love to be made into a live action. And I would love to play Ascencia, because she's really weird.
So Star Trek seems to have kind of a shared kind of humanism message that with the Good Place. It seems like that's sort of almost a similar DNA there with just the humanism aspect. And is that something you're particularly drawn to?
I really am drawn to things that have a message, a greater message. I think, with She-Hulk it was very much so the story that I was trying to tell was one of female misogyny, and how it only ever punishes women for us to look at each other as a threat. My character plays someone who's so threatened by another woman, and women have this scarcity mindset. There's only room for one, and we must knock each other out. And so I think anywhere like that, where I feel like there is a bigger story to tell, I'm interested, and I don't want to make frivolous things. I get lots of offers for, well-paid, silly things. I'm not going to enjoy showing to a young person one day. I would personally like to, as much as I can, make things that combine fun and a really strong resonating message, because right now it's become so impossible to have political conversations. Everything gets heated so fast and everyone's so judgmental, and I think art is one of the last ways that you can have these important conversations about class, race, sex, any of these things, where it doesn't become instantly inflammatory. They'll watch the whole episode, they'll get to the end of your plea or your argument, and so I think art is very important in that way.
Do you mind if I ask you who designed your outfit? Because I'm obsessed.
Oh, it's Moschino. I'm
Okay.
like head to toe Moschino. Jeremy Scott's a genius.
Unbelievable.
But I was like, if not Comic-Con, then where?
Oh, it's so
Where
good.
the fuck else am I going to wear this?
Did it come pumped up when you bought it, or did you have to do it yourself?
No, it was on the. Wait, what did you say again?
Did you have to pump the things up yourself?
Yeah, no, I was like in the car on the way over here. Yeah, no, it's a joy.
unbelievable. The
I
shoe's
love dressing
incredible.
up for Comic-Con. Like, I fucking hate it when people turn up in their jeans and t-shirts here. Like, it pisses me off. It's like the actors. It drives me mad. But you wouldn't do that for any other premiere. Like, fucking show up.
Thank you for respecting
It's like,
me.
yeah. Like, it literally makes me irate.
Yeah.
Like, I get angry about it.
I
Like,
saw
it's
you
like-
walk in and I was like, oh my god. It's like, I've done a ton of these and I was like, that outfit is
no
the...
cameras at
You
this
win.
point.
You win.
We're not allowed to get pictures, but I wanted to get
We
a
got a
picture.
picture together?
Can we? Yeah. Thank you. I'm a big fashion person, so seeing it, like, I was like, oh my god.
This was on the runway a week ago.